Let's take a look at some news articles. So, Android and iOS apps have hard-coded authentication keys for cloud services. This is one of the most common security flaws in apps is hard-coded credentials. It's a very bad policy because the credentials can be extracted from the apps by use of commands like strings to see the symbols, and also it's very hard to update those credentials. So this is the wrong way to do it. And a lot of mobile apps made this mistake with 5 million downloads, some of them. So it is pretty ridiculous that I've so many products over the last several years have had this flaw, including Cisco several times. Really mature companies that should know better seem to have coders that still do this appalling practice of having hard-coded credentials in the app, and they don't seem to have a security review at their company to stop it, which they ought to. This is surprising to me. Lina Khan, the head of the Federal Trade Commission, has decided to ban people who put up fake reviews. Now, as you probably know, if you go to Yelp or the Google reviews or Amazon reviews of any site, people just pay for good reviews, and they also pay for bad reviews of their competitors, and they pay to take down reviews that are bad about them and all that. And all this is going to be illegal as of today. I wonder how enforceable this will be and so on. We'll see what comes of it. I know I listen to podcasts, and the host of the podcast will often read something, and they sometimes even read the text. It says, tell a personal story about how this product has affected your life, and they then claim that they actually sleep on these sheets and they're better or something. And I imagine 90% of the time they don't actually sleep on the sheets, and that they say this would be a crime if you praise a product without having actually used it. So I don't know. And then there's celebrity endorsements where you just pay somebody to recommend an energy drink or something. I think a whole lot of advertising is going to fall under this rule, so we'll see what comes of it. It sounds to me like this is going to be unenforceable. I'm going to check for comments in the Twitch. All right. Just hello. Hello, folks. All right. So this is the Tasmanian tiger. Apparently it is a marsupial, and it's been extinct since the 1930s. And this company is going to de-extinct it. They are generating a new version of it from, I guess, samples they found somewhere, and they've already done it to several other species. They're planning to do it anyway to the dodo and other species and the mammoth. So this is the same technology as in the movie Jurassic Park, really. They're really going to do it, and while they're at it, they are improving the animals. They want to bring back the Tasmanian tiger, and they want to add a gene to it that will make it resistant to the cane toad venom. The cane toad is an invasive species that invaded Australia and is very deadly to the native wildlife. So if you were to bring back the Tasmanian tiger and not include this resistance, it would probably be killed off by the cane toad. So they're going to improve it. So it's interesting. Genetic editing and genetically modified plants and animals have been around for a while, and this is the latest version of it, bringing back things from extinction. So the San Francisco Police Department was robbed. There was a program called SAFE Incorporated, which was founded as a product of the San Francisco Police Department to lead community-facing crime prevention initiatives, but apparently it was a scam, and they stole something like $5 million and then dissolved the organization. And now the police are saying they're not going to do anything about it. They're not going to try to get it back. They're not going to prosecute anybody because the organization has been dissolved, so there's nobody to talk to about it, which sounds pretty ridiculous. And the author of this article is complaining, I think rightly so, that this is how corruption works. You let people steal stuff and then you don't prosecute them, and that seems like a pretty bad policy. But San Francisco government has always been pretty famously corrupt. And there have been a lot of scandals in the last few years of just ridiculous amounts of bribery and corruption in the government, and I think it continues. Speaking of bribery and corruption, so Elon Musk is trying to buy the election for Trump. He donated many millions of dollars to Trump's super PACs. Now he is holding rallies in Pennsylvania for Trump, and he's handing out $1 million a day to someone who signs up on his website so they get your information. And so he does seem to have, he's the richest man in the world, and he seems to be moving from trying to get more money to trying to get more political power. And Trump is a very transactional guy. So if you donate money to Trump, you are purchasing something, and it's not entirely clear exactly what Elon Musk is purchasing, but presumably some kind of position in the Trump administration. That's usually how it works, and we'll see what comes of it all. So this, I've heard various versions of this. This is another one where they want to send satellites in orbit without needing to use rockets. Now that would be better for the environment. The rockets do damage to the ozone layer and stuff, and Elon Musk in particular for SpaceX, but several other companies are now sending up thousands of rockets every year. So they have this thing instead where you just put them on a loop and spin it around like a sling, and then catapult them up from this ground-based station running on electricity. So you don't have a rocket, you just build up enough speed in this circular track and then zip them out at the end. So they've made several tests to show that it works, and this may become a cheaper, safer way to send satellites up. We'll see. Reuters has a detailed investigation of how much political violence there is in the United States. There's a whole lot of people talking about an impending civil war, largely on the right. And the thing that all the experts I've listened to for years have said is that we will not have a civil war like the previous one, where we have armies meeting on a field of battle wearing different uniforms. What we'll have is political unrest the way they had it in Ireland in the time of the Irish Troubles, where there'll just be a lot of angry little groups forming a little militia, getting some weapons, and blowing up something or killing somebody in a sort of stochastic way. And this is certainly what happens. I mean, Trump says something about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, then people go there with bomb threats and perhaps guns and try to shoot people up. So their leaders, like Trump, will just make a statement pointing them at a target, and then the people will independently form little groups and attack the target out of their strong political feeling, and that's where we're headed. And so they have a list of the recent attacks. They say attacks are the biggest rise in U.S. political violence since the 1970s, and they expect a lot more of it. 300 cases since 2021 on both sides, although mostly, I think, on the right. People that attack other people for political reasons. There's a lot of it going on. It's not an organized war. It's just a whole lot of people that get really, really angry, and some of them go commit an act of violence to express their strong political feelings. Take another look at the buying Twitter was his first attempt at consolidating his power. It didn't work well. Buying votes doesn't scale. I hope you're right. We're going to see. It's also probably illegal. So there are people trying to get him to be punished for just buying the votes. That would be nice if that actually happens. All right. So the Securities and Exchange Commission has charged 4 companies for misleading cyber disclosures. This is about the the SolarWinds attack, which was a few years ago. This was when the Russians compromised the SolarWinds company and they poisoned the legitimate updates from the company. But the thing that these companies did is they got hacked by this means, and then they lied about it. They claimed that only a small amount of data had been stolen, when in fact they knew a lot more had been stolen. And this is a very common practice in the industry. And it's surprising that people are actually getting punished for it. This may make a difference. If you actually get punished for lying about attacks, I've seen this as standard. Almost every company will first say we didn't get hacked, then they'll say they didn't get any personal data, then they'll say they only got a little personal data, then they'll gradually be dragged kicking and screaming into admitting that a large amount of data was compromised. But this would suggest they will be punished for those false disclosures. So you remember the Russian attempt to manipulate the previous elections in 2016 and 2020, and they're doing it again. And they do it mainly through propaganda and social media. And now they have made a false Tim Walz sexual abuse claim, claiming that he abused his students when he was a teacher, which apparently is false and unfounded and being sent by propaganda teams. And of course, this will sway a lot of people who are inclined to believe it. These dirty tricks have been present in all elections, but they're amplified by the Russians quite a bit. The Russians are very good at this kind of propaganda. And I think that's the main way they affect elections. They do not do it by actually hacking voting machines and changing the votes, things like that. That's very difficult. This is what they do. They have propaganda to sort of sway people. All right. And, all right, there was something in Open Secrets with more about the interference in the election, but It's not loading for some reason. So there's a new WinReg attack. Windows has a registry which controls all the operation of all the software on the machine, and you can manipulate the registry remotely, a process called remote registry. And now there is a way to trick it into using NTLM authentication over the internet, so you can relay an NTLM hash. And this is a way to take over a Windows domain by downgrading the security of the authentication process. So it's a new Windows security flaw, and it affects all Windows Server versions. And I wonder if there's a patch out yet, actually. They explain how it works. There is proof of concept code out there. Vulnerability was discovered. It was on February 1. They dismissed it. And April 25th, there's a documentation issue. Confirmed it on July 8th. They now have a working proof of concept. But I don't see anything about a patch being out yet. So there may not be a patch available, but the attack is possible. Anyway, I'm going to stop the news.